This episode is as much for you as it is a reminder for myself to learn how to unlearn my workaholic tendencies. Hello, welcome back to Feel Good Lab, the podcast where we explore the intersection between personal growth and career success and all of the stuff that happens in between. I'm your host, Angel, and we're back in our usual environment, but not for long because next week, actually, not even next week, well, it is next week, but in 3 days' time, I will be headed to Europe for the entire month of September, which is pretty insane to think about. I could have never have imagined leaving for an entire month, but I did quit my tech job earlier this year, which I promise a video is coming. If you come from my YouTube channel and you're wondering, what the heck, Angel, why haven't you talked about this? I promise that video is coming. It honestly just gives me a lot of anxiety to talk about it, which I will also explain in that video. But since quitting my full-time job and starting freelancing and content creation full-time, it means that my schedule has become more flexible. Has it gotten any less busy? No, but the schedule is based on my own time. Like I make my own schedule now. So being able to decide that I'm going to go to Europe for a month is pretty insane to me. It doesn't really feel real, but here we are, just wrapping up all of the projects that I need to get done before I'm off to Europe. So let's start with the feel good moment of the week. I actually just got back like 4 or 5 days ago from Cabo. I planned a little Mexico getaway for one of my best friends, Kathleen. Me and her take turns planning really exciting things for each other on each other's birthday. We were actually just talking about how we've started to set this standard for our birthdays that I feel like it may be hard for our partners, future partners, past partners, current partners to match up to. Like we really go out of the way to make this day as special as possible. And we have gotten into this habit of making each year better and better as we become adults, as we are more financially able to do so. And I was saying to her, I almost feel a little bad for Tony, her partner, because how is he supposed to compete with me? I have known her for so long. I mean, obviously, having a partner is very different than having a best friend, but I like to think that I'm planning some pretty great birthdays. And I'm like, Tony, you need to step it up. But no, Tony actually does an amazing job. He's an amazing, amazing partner. It's just funny because we're like, well, if we ever find a guy that doesn't treat us well, they need to step up because somebody else already is. We're treating each other the best. So anyways, the feel-good moment was definitely that entire Cabo trip and just spending time, not just in the sun and sort of vlogging off. I did do a little bit of work while I was there, but enjoying the beach, also showing them the places that I have been. I went to Cabo on a solo trip 2 years ago now, and solo trips are always this special thing for me, but being able to show some of my closest friends the spots that I went to and the spots that I loved and just secret little places that I found when I was traveling alone felt really special. I got the idea for this episode from my Discord, actually. I put out a message on our Discord community saying, I have been feeling like I've been overthinking my YouTube channel a lot lately. I have been doing a lot of experimentation, some working well, some not working well. And it's the first time in a long time that the performance of my videos are starting to get to me a little bit. I have always used content as a creative outlet, and that's worked really well for me. But I think because it is so much a part of my career now that it does start to stress me out a little bit. And then because it's stressing me out, I overthink. And then because I overthink, I overwhelm myself. And then I enter this stage of paralyzation and I just can't think of new ideas, and it gets really frustrating because it's very much so this paradoxical cyclical situation where one comes after the other, and then I find myself in this bit of a thinking trap. So anyways, I sent out a message in my Discord saying, this is how I've been feeling, and I've been feeling a little bit stuck. Do you have any suggestions on videos that you want to see? Because at the end of the day, I really want to make sure that I'm balancing the growth of my channel, but also it being a creative outlet, but also creating videos that my community wants to see. And I feel like I've lost touch of that a little bit, of just like being able to really connect with you. And I think that's why I love this podcast so much, because I'm literally taking like things you're telling me and things that you want to hear about, and then like having a really raw and honest conversation about it in a very long form type of way, and not worrying about like, okay, I'm trying to keep this video under like 10 minutes. Like podcasts can and should be longer, and I love them for it. So she was saying maybe you should talk about the topic of like recharging your energy when life gets really hectic. And honestly, I think that actually works really, really well. I may even do a video about this as well, but it's a topic that I really wanted to chat about on this show as well, because I think the topic fits really well into our overall theme. I think the act of recharging your energy is going to look very different for everyone, because we all have different personalities and different needs and different love languages, and those are all things that are going to play into what feels recharging for us. So if you're an introvert, you may recharge by being alone. If you're an extrovert, you may recharge around people. So I think there is this aspect of, as you're listening to this episode and maybe brainstorming and maybe even journaling, like writing down what aspects of you require what type of energy recharge. That is a big reason why I love taking solo trips, because the introvert in me needs that time alone, needs that time to disconnect, even from the people that I absolutely love. It's that quality time of being by myself where I really get to look inwards and reflect and evaluate how life is going. Whereas I am kind of an introverted extrovert, or an extroverted introvert. And what that means is when I'm around people, I also am energized, but the energy that I get from being alone and being around people is very, very different. I do get sick of being alone sometimes, but I also get sick of being around people sometimes. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out like, what are your needs currently? What is it that you're really craving? Like truly tap into that voice and just silence everything else and listen to it. Like, what do I need right now? And listening to your inner voice and your needs is not easy by any means. I've actually had multiple sessions with my therapist just talking about needs. And she actually sent me this needs database, which essentially are just words that are different needs that humans may have. And it's not a complete list by any means. I will link it in the show notes if you want to check it out. But just sharing some of the needs that are in this list, it's kind of split into categories. So there's connection needs, physical well-being needs, honesty, play, peace, autonomy, meaning. And some of the words that are included, like under connection, are acceptance, affection, appreciation, belonging, communication, cooperation, closeness. There's a bunch more. And then under physical well-being, there's like air, food, movement and exercise, rest and sleep, sexual expression, safety, shelter, touch, water. Under play, there's joy and humor. Under peace, there's beauty, communion, ease, equality. Under autonomy, there's freedom, choice, space. And under meaning, there's stuff like challenge, clarity, efficacy, growth, learning. So there are a ton. And the exercise that she told me to do was to look through the list and really start to pick out the ones that stand out to me the most, because honestly, some of those words will just jump at you. So if you want to do this exercise with me, open up that needs inventory or needs database, see what words jump out at you, and then write them down, and then evaluate how you can go about fulfilling that need to help yourself re-energize. It's something that I'm going to do immediately after recording this podcast episode, because I'm in need of this specific exercise right now. I'm currently in this very conflicted sort of mindset of knowing that I need rest and that I am sort of edging closer and closer to burnout, but also feeling so motivated and inspired that I don't want to lose the momentum. I don't know if you've ever been in a similar scenario or like situation or have had a similar feeling where it's getting to a point where it feels so hard to take a break or to let go of work, because work is something that provides a lot of fulfillment in my life, and it also is this huge creative outlet that I have. But again, it's that cyclical mindset of, okay, I really enjoy my work, so I'm going to do more work. But because I'm doing more work, it's actually stressing and burning me out in the long run. But I also can't let go of work because it brings me that fulfillment. This was something that I definitely worried about when it came to the career of content creation, because I personally started content creation not as a business, not as a career option, but really just as a hobby and a creative outlet. And I used to never want to do this full time because I never wanted this to get to a place where I felt like it was a chore, where I felt like because I had to pay the bills, it took the joy out of creating. And I think that's also why I've kind of kept a foot in marketing in the world of tech and still am doing freelancer with a major client, because it means that at least I'm not putting all of my eggs in this one basket and worrying about not being creative enough and not hitting my metrics and not building big enough of a community. I just didn't want it to get to that point where those things made me not love creating. I definitely haven't lost my love for content creation, which I'm very, very glad about. But I think filming this episode, having this conversation, and sort of getting my brain thinking about recharging and renewing my energy is going to just help prolong my ability to love content creation and just make it a more sustainable thing in my life. And even if you're not a content creator, I think this is going to apply in a lot of different fields, because honestly, I think the culture in North America is very much so geared towards having work be such a big part of our lives that it does bring this huge sense of fulfillment to us. I've actually talked about this with a lot of my friends about how different the mindset towards work is in Europe versus in North America. In North America, you meet someone and one of the first questions that you ask them is, what do you do for work? And if you meet someone who's in a similar industry as you or in the same industry as you talk shop, you talk about work, you talk about things going on at work, things going on in the industry, trends that you see. Our conversations rarely are without the topic of work. Whereas when you're in Europe, at least every time that I've been there and had a conversation with someone who lives there, work does not come up. And it's even to the point where I've made the mistake of asking someone, hey, what do you do? Oh, that's really cool. Can you tell me more about it? They've actually shut that conversation down and been like, it's the weekend. Let's not talk about work. So what do you have planned for this weekend? Where are you going next? Oh, that's really cool. What books are you reading? They just do not want to talk about work. Like, they're so good about putting work away when they're off work. I do have plans to move to Europe in the very near future. So I think that even if I'm not doing this for my own sanity's sake right now, I should really learn how to log off both physically and mentally, just for the sake of like meeting people and meeting friends and not having them think that I'm absolutely freaking crazy when I actually live there. When you're thinking about how to get your brain off work, there are a ton of different activities that you can do that will play into like the act of play, but also make sure that you are taking yourself out of your environment, both physically and mentally, so that you can actually forget about work. For me, this looks like reading, because it literally transports me to a different world, a different time, and a different story other than my own. And I think that's why reading has remained such a consistent habit in my life. Exercise is another great one, whether that be slow exercise like going out for a walk, going for a small hike, or something more intensive like a HIIT workout or going to the gym and doing weight training. Exercise is also one of the activities that helps you close your stress cycle. And the whole thing about the stress cycle, which Emily Nagoski talks about in her book Burnout is that there's a misunderstanding that humans have about how stress works, because oftentimes we think that if we remove ourselves from the stressful situation, that in itself is enough for us not to feel stressed. But that is actually not how it works. Studies show that even if you remove the stressor from your life or from your immediate environment, you are actually still in that fight or flight mode, meaning your body hasn't coped and dealt with that stress. So she has this whole book that talks about closing the stress cycle and the things that you can do to complete that stress cycle, aka let your body know that you're safe, you're good, you no longer have to be in fight or flight mode. Exercise is one of them, crying, laughter, social interaction, creative outlet. There are a few more, but it's important to incorporate those things into the activities that you do that take you away from work, because yes, removing yourself from work is going to help you de-stress, but what's really going to help you like physiologically let go of work are those specific activities that help you close your stress cycle. There's also the consideration of active rest versus passive rest. So active rest looks like reading, it looks like learning, it looks like activities that you can do that still engage your brain, but is something that brings you peace and doesn't have anything to do with work. Then there is passive rest, which is really just like zoning out, sleeping, napping, literally doing nothing. I definitely have a bit of a tendency to lean towards active rest because it's hard for me to let go of that feeling of I need to do more, I need to be doing something and not just doing nothing. But honestly, it's important to have both. And that is a balance that I am trying to foster more in my life, where I need to start giving myself more time just to do nothing, especially when you work in a creative field, because oftentimes that period of doing nothing is actually the time that your brain needs to recharge for you to continue to be able to act creatively and work creatively. Ali Abdal actually talks about this in his book, Feel Good Productivity, where he talks about the DMN, or the default mode network, which is actually a region of our brain that gets activated when we are experiencing passive rest. So when we let our brains wander and just be absent, our brains aren't actually just completely shutting off. It's actually tapping into this default mode network, which actually can be really beneficial to your productivity and your creativity. Because the default mode network actually helps us recall memories, daydream, and think about the future. So if we're never letting our brains get to that point where we can tap into that network, we're going to feel a lot more resistance when we're actually trying to accomplish those specific mental tasks. I might have to write a sticky note and stick it on my desk that just says zoning out is productive, because I definitely need that reminder sometimes. Another activity, or maybe for some of us, a challenge that we can try is what he calls the write-off principle. And all that really means is that we allow ourselves to have write-off days. This is a genuine question for you that I want you to answer to yourself right now as you're listening to this podcast, either out loud or in your head. But when was the last time that you had a write-off day? Mine was probably, I want to say like 2 weeks ago, where I had a day where I just wasn't feeling it. Like I was feeling so low, so foggy in the brain, and it just felt like everything I did felt so hard. And I knew that I wasn't going to be productive that day, no matter how hard I tried. So, of course, me being me, I tried to push up against it and tried to get some work done. But after spending a solid like 3-4 hours trying, but honestly failing at being productive, I wrote the rest of the day off. Now, I'm not saying that you need to have a write-off day every single week or every couple of days, but these days do end up being really important for us. And on your write-off day, like truly allow yourself not to work. Pick a weekend day if you have a 9 to 5, but give yourself that break, that much needed break to just do nothing. What did I do on my write-off day? I was a couch potato. I watched shows. I found a movie that honestly I didn't really care about, so I stopped that movie and found another one. I tried to read and I couldn't even do that. Like when I cannot get into a book, you know that I am in desperate need of a break. I ate a lot of food that day, like more than my usual consumption of food, because that is just what I was feeling like. I didn't work out. I really didn't do anything. And it felt so good. And even though I had that quote unquote unproductive day, I still ended up having such a productive week because coming out of that write off day, I felt so refreshed the next day. And I was able to accomplish more than I had really planned that next day. I think the main thing to note when you are thinking about having a write off day is that truly, like, it can be a write off. You don't have to do anything. Do not beat yourself up for it because you have scheduled in this write-off day. It can be kind of hard for me to schedule write-off days because if I schedule for a write-off day, but then I go into that day and I'm feeling really inspired and motivated, it can be hard. I feel this level of resistance when it comes to having that actual write-off day. So what I like to do is have the write-off days when I am having those bad days. So kind of let it be more of a spontaneous thing. But whatever works for you, whether that's scheduling it in or whether it's letting it happen very spontaneously, like just have these days. Really, truly, write-off days are just a way to be kind to yourself and show compassion to yourself because at the end of the day, we are all humans. And yes, we want to achieve big, great, amazing, successful things. But in order to do that, implementing the write-off principle is absolutely a must. There's no two ways about it. Even Superman needs to have a rest day. Something to know about me is that I am a huge journaling person. I journal every single day without fail. I started my first journal when I was 10 years old. Given I didn't really write anything amazing in that journal. I actually think I used my first journal as like a like a storytelling writing exercise because nothing was going on in my life at 10 years old. And so I actually would write journal entries and pretend that I had this really interesting day. But that love for journaling has sort of grown over the years and I've turned it into both a way for me to brain dump and just let go of anything that I'm feeling or feeling stressed about in the moment, and also for me to get inspired and to get my brain thinking and get my creative juices flowing and plan for my future. So I think journaling has a million and one different purposes. So if you're at a point in your life where you still haven't given journaling a try, I would highly recommend just giving it a go. So I want to end off this episode with some journaling prompts for you to try out. I don't know why I don't share more of my journaling prompts, honestly, because it is such an important tool, like a critical tool for me to continue to be a productive and highly functioning human being. So I think I will share more prompts, whether that is through Instagram stories or YouTube videos or podcast episodes. But if you've gotten to the point of this episode, comment and let me know if journaling prompts would be something you want to continue to hear about and see, and whether or not you currently journal. So the first prompt I'm pulling from Ollie's book from the recharge section, and really all you have to do for this specific exercise is to create 2 lists. Under the first list, I want you to write the title, Things I Do When I'm Feeling Drained of Energy. So you're going to use this list to detail some of your regular habits of when you're feeling tired or when you're feeling stuck with whatever project you're working on. What are the habits that you naturally lean towards? This could be scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on TikTok, lying down, going for a walk. Don't think too hard about it and just write down the first things that come to your mind. And then in the second list, I want you to title it Things I Do That Actually Energize Me. Again, don't think about it too hard and just write down whatever comes to mind. For me, the things that come to mind are playing with Mika, going for a walk, doing yoga, hanging out with my friends. Lying down, honestly, is definitely one of them. So take a moment and just make those 2 lists. And then once you've completed your list, I want you to look at those 2 lists and just do a bit of a comparison. Are the things that are in your second list matching up to the things that are in your first list? Because if there's things in your first list that you do when you're feeling tired and when you're feeling drained that aren't on the second list of things that energize you, Why are you doing them when you're tired? Are they really helping you at all when you're feeling drained? I really love these types of exercises because it forces you to examine some of the habits that you have in your life right now. And it's not meant for you to look at yourself in a negative way and say, oh, I do all of these things that don't energize me. Like, why am I like this? Ugh, I hate myself. No, every time we do any type of self-reflection, it really is to shine a light on things that you can work on. Every single human being has habits that really help them and habits that do not serve them. So really, we're just trying to identify what are the habits that do not serve you, that do not energize you, and then evaluating how we can start to unlearn some of those habits and replace them with ones that really benefit our lives. Another prompt that I think would be really helpful is to look at what low priority areas of your life are stealing the most time and energy from you. This really plays into the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule of 20% of the work that you do produces 80% of the results. So you're turning it around and really trying to identify what is the 80% that is only producing 20% of the work that I should try to eliminate. The fourth prompt is, how do things that aren't a priority end up on your to-do list? So if you know and you can identify that certain tasks are a part of that 80% that doesn't give you much of a result, how do these things keep ending up on our to-do list and keep draining our energy? And then the prompt to wrap this all up is to list 5 things that really feed your soul. We talked about the things that energize you, but what are the things that truly make you feel like your best self, like the most fulfilled and happy and blessed version of yourself? And then identifying how you can start adding more of these things into your daily routine. Doing this episode felt like therapy for me. I'm itching to sort of go through and do some of these exercises myself to help me figure out what I need to be doing right now to get myself out of my current funk. If you've also been in a little bit of a funk lately and feeling a little lost and feeling like you really need a break, you are not alone. I'm in that same boat with you right now. Please give those journaling prompts a try, and I really hope that everything we talked about in this episode helps you at least be able to figure out the things that are draining you and how you can start removing some of those things from your life. If you made it all the way to the end, I love you. Thank you for spending the time with me. Go and leave the little sun emoji either directly on this podcast episode or on the Instagram page so that I know that you are an absolute real one. It would also really, really help me if you rated this podcast wherever you're listening to it, because those ratings and follows and comments are what helps this podcast grow. And this really is such a special project of mine, and I just really want it to do well. So anything that you could do to help, I appreciate you so, so much. I hope you got something out of this episode and take a little break for yourselves. And I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are in the world. I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.